Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hi, how are you?
I am good. How are you? Sorry, it took me a minute to get
No,
on.
you're fine. You're fine. All good. My name's Bobby. I am the director over at All Country News, and we are super excited to have you on our podcast.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Of course, I have you here for about 20 minutes. Does that work for you?
Perfect.
Awesome. So I'm going to start off by saying, congratulations on your wedding. How
Thank
exciting was
you.
that? So, kind of chat with me. Was that always the plan? I know you and your husband are both very busy in the music industry and probably had to squeeze it in when it made the most sense. But talk to me a little bit about your wedding. It looked so pretty.
Oh, thank you. It was the best day. I mean, to answer your question, that was not really always the plan. We were sort of planning a wedding, like a bigger, more traditional wedding for October. And the planning just it was so overwhelming to me. I'm like really not one for like all the wedding hoopla. I love attending weddings, but when it came to home, I was like, I don't think I really want all this. And obviously my husband, he's a dude, so he's like, I don't we can go to the courthouse. I don't care. I just want to marry you. And so we kind of dialed that back a little bit to be sort of like smaller, just family, but it was still just like so much like over the top unnecessary stuff. And so with everything going on, we were like, what if we just got married?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what we did, and it ended up being like really that was exactly what we wanted all along. We just wanted something small, and we just didn't know how to do it. And so one day it was sort of like, all right, well, we're either going to do it or we're not, so let's just do it. And it took me 3 weeks to plan. It was so easy. And yeah, so it's not that hard to get married. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't care if my napkins are blue, right? Just
That
very
was the
simple.
thing. I told my mom, I was like, if one more person asked me about the color of a tablecloth, like I'm gonna lose it. Like I can't. And so we were just like, let's just not do all
I
that.
love it. Well, the pictures turned out beautiful, and I love that you kind of just surprised it. And it was so fun seeing all your fans and other people in the industry being like, oh my gosh. So, congratulations.
Thank
But
you.
I know not a lot of people know this, but you are a Nashville/Nashville area native, which I think
Yeah.
makes this very, your kind of career very unique, almost like the family business. So, do you feel like growing up kind of surrounded by this inspired you or intimidated you or a little bit of both?
Definitely a little bit of both. I think more so it inspired me just because like it's so ingrained in me, and it's so much a part of my growing up. And playing music is so much a part of my growing up. And it's like I always say, I feel like if there's anything to like having an advantage of growing up here, I think it would be it just made it seem that much more possible to do. Cause like when I was a kid, like we weren't in the industry by any means. Like my parents had no like connections to the industry. So I didn't know anything about that world. All I saw was like people who love country music and do it for a living. I just saw a lot of that. And so I always thought it was possible to do. And so that was really cool. And also like, not even to mention the fact that on every corner there's a bar or restaurant that you can go and play your music in. Like that's really special, and was just so inspiring to grow up around that. And just like the camaraderie and the downtown and the live music everywhere. I love that about my
Yeah,
childhood.
you kind of got to do it in your own backyard versus people that kind of have this big dream of moving to Nashville and
Yeah.
can I make it? You were kind of there in the comfort of your own home, but you mentioned that your family like, obviously wasn't in the industry, but who was musical in your family, or were you kind of the first one to kind of get the bug?
So there's definitely a lot of musical people in my family. Like my grandmother is an amazing piano player. Her dad was too. And then I have so many cousins and other family members that sing or write songs or whatever, but no one so a lot of musical talent in my family, but no one really went for it and pursued it as a career until my older sister, who her name's Caroline Watkins, and she's a songwriter in town, and she's just 2 years older than me. um, she was the first one to be like, hey, actually, I'm going to try and do this as a career. And so I really watched her go before me. And it's like I said, like we grew up watching other people do it. And so it just, to her, she was like, yeah, of course I can try to
Yeah.
make this a job. Like, I think I can do it. And so she was the first one, and then we kind of started doing it together, and just ran from there. So we were the first ones to pursue it, but there's definitely lots of musical history in our
I love
family.
it. I know that's like me. My grandma is can sing beautifully. Still at like 86 is singing in church.
Oh
That
gosh,
whole
that's
side of my family is so musical. And I had a choir director in high school tell me that I should follow a different path. So I am still very much loving music, but now I get to ask you about your love of music. Like, yeah, like
that's
flat out. I tell people all the time, my girlfriends were like, come do women's a cappella. And I'm like, okay. And start singing. And the director was like, you girls sound a little off this morning. So I lip sync and he goes, oh, much better. And I quietly left the room. Like, that's my favorite story to tell. People are like, what do you mean you're not musical? I'm like,
totally.
I was like, no.
That's what I love about the music business is like how many jobs there are. Like I was amazed at how when I like first kind of got into the industry scene, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a million people that are doing this who aren't necessarily musical, but they have the same passion that we do. And like, how cool is that? Because you can do things that I could never ever do. Like, and I just think that's cool. So anyway.
Yeah, I always love telling that story because people are like, what do you mean you're not musical? I'm like, I can tell you where I was when somebody told me not once, but twice, like, let's try something else here, Bobby. But I know that you also went to Ole Miss, which is super fun. My grandma was like Miss Ole Miss back in the day. We just dug up
No,
photos. So when I saw that you were there, I was like, okay, this is really funny.
that's
But
awesome.
did you feel that pull to come home? Was there any moment in your college career where you're like, okay, you know, the thing to do is go get your degree, but your head was kind of back home?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that pretty much describes like my whole experience because like we were saying earlier, most musical kids are like, okay, I've got this talent. I guess I need to go to Nashville. And for me, I was already there and like I was like, get me out of here. I'm sick of it. I've seen it all. I don't want to be here. And so that was like a big reason why I went to college was like I wanted to get out and like kind of live life. And I didn't know that I would come back. I just sort of thought I was going and was going to go wherever the wind took me. And I'm glad that I did that because I loved Ole Miss. Like seriously, I loved every second of it. I love the people that I met and all the experiences I got. But when you're in college, like the big looming question is like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you majoring in? And what do you want to do? And every time I would get that question, I would have this like, not like guilt is the wrong word because that sounds negative, but this sort of like pull in my heart that was like, you want to do music, that's what you want to be doing. Like, but I think I was just scared of it. And so it took a long time, but like a couple years into my college experience, I like sort of had too many moments that it just hit me so hard. Like music is my only passion that I feel strongly enough to do a career with it. Obviously, I need to move home after this is all over. And so I did.
Lucky me, I get to move back to where I need to be to do this, right?
Exactly. It's familiar. And so I'm very blessed.
I love it. But I want to talk about the Heartbreak record. First of all, 17 songs. So the first thing I thought of was after like, ooh, yay, 17 songs, because I'm a sucker for a longer record, was
Good.
holy crap. If she has 17 songs, that means there were probably another 117 songs that didn't make the cut. And
Yeah.
that like I think a lot of people, especially for your big first full length project, you feel like you're choosing your favorite children. So kind
Yeah.
of talk to me about how you built this record out. Are all of these songs really old or some of these songs more recent? Kind of walk me through that.
It was so hard to narrow it down. And like, in all honesty, I try not to even think about what songs got left behind because I'm like, oh, don't remind me. But at the same time, there are definitely some songs that I think are still going to get to have their moment that maybe could have gone on this project that will find a place in the future. So that's cool and awesome. But it was so fun. Like honestly, I've been writing this album for like a few years. And I like to think that like all of my past experiences kind of led up to what ended up in this album. experiences, observations, friends' experiences and stuff. And so some of the songs are really old. For example, Leavers Leave, that may have been one of the first, I know it was one of the first ones we wrote. I know it was the first one that we recorded ever. And I just felt strongly about saving it for a longer body of work, like an album, because it's just a really personal story to me. And it tells, like, it kind of gives context into maybe like where all the other heartbreak came from and how like it has to do with me as a person. And so I just felt strongly about saving it. And so that one's pretty old. And same with the Heartbroken Record, the song.
Yeah.
That's old too, because that sort of gave me the concept for the album. Like that theme was very natural because I just tend to write a lot of heartbreak songs. But when we wrote that song, I sort of thought, what if we like just made this the album concept and made it really unique and tried to cover every perspective I could think of heartbreak. So sort of just kept that in my back pocket too. And then some of them are a lot newer and fresher and more current. But they're all just, you know, there's like that cliche that's like, it takes your whole life to write your first album. And I always kind of rolled my eyes at that. But now that I've done it, I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
A long time. So with Will being in the industry and a writer, and
Yeah.
he's such a juggernaut. He does a little bit of everything. I love hearing his name in like all these different spaces. I'm like, man, this guy does a lot. Was he like the ultimate A&R for you? Did you run any of these past him, or did you guys kind of try to make this a separate thing?
He stayed pretty out of the A&R
Okay.
process. Although he's a writer on a lot of the songs,
I noticed that.
can't get away from that. But he really stays out of the A&R process, and it's a lot of me and my producer Joey.
Yeah.
But Will is just a great, I mean, like we met songwriting, and writing the song Heartbroken Record was like one of the first times we wrote together, and like we just immediately had this connection as songwriters. And like I thought like, oh, this guy really gets me, and he gets like clearly we get each other on more.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah.
But he's so talented, and like the special thing about, you know, even if he stays out of the nitty-gritty process, and that's more me and my label team, it's really special to have him as a songwriter because like he knows me so well and he keeps me so grounded. And it's the same with like I write with my sister a lot too. With all of us, it's like we all know each other. We know, they know how I want to say things. They know what I've gone through. And so getting to write with people like that is cool. And it's like it just allows there to be more honesty and truth in your writing, I think. So that's pretty
I
cool.
love that you don't have to like tiptoe around anything. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? With maybe
exactly.
with sometimes as a, you know, a newer act in town, you feel like you have to like kind of just let people come to you. And I'm sure it's really refreshing with them that you're like, no, I don't like that. Like try
Yeah,
again.
it saves a lot of time.
I love it. So I grew up, I'm going to age myself a little bit, but I grew up in the generation of your Faith Hill, Martina McBride, the Trishas,
Yes.
the Chicks, like that. Like my last name is Dixon, and my dad thought he was really clever to get me a Dixie Chicks album. He's like, it's the Dixon Chicks. I'm like, Dad, like ultimate
That's
tacky
awesome.
dad joke. But he, now
Oh, I
that I'm
love
like
it. I love it.
working in the space, he's like, if it wasn't for me, I'm like, be quiet. Like, okay, but maybe. But I love that, you know, I've always said this, and I've said this for a while, that I really have felt the pendulum swinging back towards strong females in this space. And so, what are your thoughts about being a part of this massive female resurgence that really has these like mature storylines for girls, and they're just like grasping onto them so wholeheartedly?
Yeah, it's so cool. It's like it feels like I everything is happening at the perfect time, and because it's so cool to get to like go alongside these girls, and there's so many that I'm a fan of right now. And so it's really special. And like I'm like you, I love that stuff too. And I do think it's coming back around. Like there are so many good girls right now, and they're just sort of like telling the truth and being unique. Like it's so easy to be a carbon copy of something, but I think there's so many girls coming up right now that are totally their own thing. And there's room for all of us. It's like you said, like you just named like 5 girls that were crushing it at the same time. But like anyone who ever makes us feel like well, there's only one slot for a blonde or one slot for a brunette. Like we've seen that's so not true. So it's cool to, I'm glad that you reminded me of those girls too, because it's true.
I love it. So I forgot to ask you this, and I always love asking this question, especially when it comes, you kind of alluded to it when it comes to a longer record. Was there a song that you really had to fight for to make sure that it made the cut?
Let me think. Well, we have this thing, we like Joey and I, and like my managers, we call it our angry list. And it's like, I have like an angry list of songs that like, if these don't make it on the project, like I'm going to be really angry. Anything else I'm willing to like have a conversation about. And so that was probably like a lot more songs than it should have been, but
I like that you're proactive. I like it.
yeah, I mean, it's like you have, I mean, I think when you're on a team, like you have to be willing to like work with people because you need the means to continue. And like, why would I be working with them if I didn't want their advice and expertise? But at the same time, like you got to fight for songs that you want. And Heartbroken Record was like the first one on my angry list. I remember like we wrote it and I was like, this one is mine. No one else can have it. Like, don't ever let this one go. And they were like, all right.
I love it. So how has it felt kind of playing some of these songs out? I mean, the elephant in the room is that you're like playing stadiums now with big names and having your own tour and stuff like that. So what has been the most rewarding part about playing some of these songs out live?
Well, it's so cool. Like, it's such perfect timing that I'm on the road so much right now when the album's just coming out. And it's like, I think just getting to see it in real time, like getting to see people receive the songs in real time. And like every night I'm surprised, you know, like I'll go out there not knowing if anyone's going to know any words, but then they'll sing a random song where I'm like, how do you know that?
You're like, that's
And
a deep cut. Why do you know that
I'm
one?
like, how do you should know that? But, and I think it's just like, it makes me want to just keep going because it's so easy, especially when you're in town a bunch, like in Nashville a bunch. It's so easy to just get caught up in the bubble and just look down Music Row and worry about what's happening around me and who's writing a song next door and what I'm writing this song alone in a room. Is anyone ever going to hear it? Like you just sort of get this tunnel vision, and it's so good for me to go out and play the song to a crowd of people and realize like, hey, the things I'm doing behind closed doors, it's actually paying off. People are listening. Like there is, for whatever reason, like a need for this song to be said. And I'm just grateful for that. So it's like been really good for me to just get to see that every night.
How excited are you to bring this overseas? I feel like not a lot of people get that opportunity like at all in their
Mm.
career.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like you're going to Stockholm. Is that like one of the spots I thought I saw you
Yeah.
were going? I'm like, and
Stop.
I know just from talking with people that, you know, people in Europe are craving country music right now. So what are you most looking forward to? Are you going to go to a McDonald's in Sweden and check that out? I heard that's pretty cool.
That's a good idea. I need to add that to my list.
Yeah.
I'm first of all really just grateful to Morgan for bringing me because like I mean like you said that's a rare opportunity to get and a lot of people don't ever get to do that, and so for him to invite me to do that so early on in my career is I am so grateful for that. But I'm excited, like honestly, as a songwriter, because I went to Europe earlier this year, and the main thing, you know, and it was a super quick trip, so I'm excited to like get to go back and really see these places. But the biggest thing people told me, they were like, they're listeners over there, like they listen to songs. And so as a songwriter, that means a lot to me because don't get me wrong, I love a rowdy American crowd where they're drinking beer and yelling and stuff. Like that will never get old to me. But I really do appreciate people who are willing to like sit and listen. Like we don't get that all the time. And so I'm excited to get to do that again.
I love it. And I always love asking this question. I feel like it's kind of a controversial question. So that's why I love asking it. And especially because I feel like you are such a songwriter first. Does a song need a bridge? Is that fair?
That's such a funny question. That's a good
I think
question.
I thought of that one day when I couldn't sleep. And now I ask as many people as I can because I feel like it's so controversial. And it's
Yeah.
just, it makes you think. And now you have to answer on the spot, which I think is even funnier.
I love that you asked that. Okay, here's my answer. I feel like normally, when it comes down to writing the bridge, like when we get to the bridge, because usually that's the last thing to be written. It's not always, but a lot of times it is. I think we normally go, okay, have we said everything that needs to be said? And if the answer is yes, then maybe you don't need a bridge. But if there's something valuable left to say, then absolutely put it in the bridge. But it's like sometimes you'll be like, you know what, we really said everything. Like it might just be redundant to add one, but I would say 9 times out of 10 that's not the case, and there does need a bridge.
I love it. I forget who said it to me. It might have been John Morgan, but he called it the bridge to nowhere.
John.
And I was like, because I know John writes a lot with Will, and I was like, oh, I have to ask this question with her too, because I think he called it the bridge to nowhere. And I was like, oh, that's so clever. But you have so much going on this year. I know you're with Morgan, you're doing your own stuff. I think there's going to be a big group of us girls road tripping to come see you in a random city. So I'm really excited for that. But what goals do you have for yourself before kind of the year wraps up? And how do you want to keep growing as an artist?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, I am really excited to play some more headlining shows. I'm hoping to just keep adding as many as we can, even like going into next year. It's scary to do that because you're like, is anyone going to show up? And if they're not, like, it's all on me and I'm holding this thing up. But at the same time, like, it's just been cool to get to do that because like I spend so much time playing for other artists, which is a blessing. I'm so grateful to get to do that. But it's like, it's special when you go out there and everyone is there to see you and they know your music. And so I'm excited to just do more of that. And I want to just keep growing, like in a world where everything is so social media driven, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a great tool. I really try to focus on building like tangible fans, like it's hard, but I try to not get caught up in views or followers because the thing that's important to me is like that people are actually hearing my music and that tangible people show up to my shows. And so I want to do the best I can to build that way.
I love it. Well, tell your agent that there is a rabid group of girls in Chicago that want you in Chicago. So
Chicago, by the way, it's one of my favorite. I went to Chicago for the first time last year and I'm like, I get scared of big cities, even though I'm from Nashville. Any other city I get scared of. I loved it. Oh my gosh. Like I had the best time. Me and my manager actually like literally yesterday, we were like, oh, we can't go back. We can't wait to go back to Chicago. So I will
let people know there's literally a group of 20 of me and my friends that are like, why is she not here? And what city are we going to? So there will be at least 20 tickets sold, if not more. So
at the show. Yeah. That's a great place to start.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I was so excited to chat with you. Congrats on everything. And we'll chat with you soon.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. This was so fun.
You are the sweetest. Yep. Please, you'll see all of my passes from shows I've somehow gotten myself into. So awesome. Thanks so much. Enjoy your day.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
You're listening